What is up? And happy holidays. Yes, Sar was right. We are doing a show. When I say we, I mean me. And when I say me, I'm doing a show at my boy Mark Petty's house here in Beechwood, Ohio, my old neighborhood. Mark is not here. Right now, he's out doing family things. So I am in my homeboy's house, which is very weird. All of his daughter's stuff is here, which is adorable and very hard to look at because it reminds you of when your kids were little and just seeing all the Gerber stuff. I don't know. I'm getting all emotional, all the little kid stuff around. Look, how am I supposed to do a show with this cuteness? I can't. Anyway, what's up, colleagues? I am so happy that y'all are here. Tori is in midair, and Michael Dean is traveling. So you know me. I'm like, well, why don't I just take all of the attention? So that's what I'm gonna do. First off, please let me know if you guys can hear me okay. I have Sar is in Steamboat, Colorado. We were in Key West. I did comedy Key West down there for what from the Christmas Eve. I did a show. My last show was Sunday night. We had an amazing time. I didn't know Key West was that dope. I'm sorry. I thought like Key West was like because I've been to the other keys, and this is no shade, but the other Florida keys are very nice. They're for retirees that aren't like crazy rich, but everybody's got some money down there. Nobody's worried about their money, and there is a ton of drinking. And when I say there's a ton of drinking, I've tried to do shows down there with people that live down there, invited people that live down there to the show in which the person that they know was performing. And I have seen those people be kicked out of shows that they were literally invited to, literally name on the guest list, had to be walked out. That's the kind of drinking we are talking about. So I was in shock when I saw what a great job my boy Tom Dustin, comic that I've known since we did the Boston Comedy Festival like 2005, and he's got a great girl there, and and Christina says that we can hear you can hear me just fine. That makes me happy. So yes, got a chance to see my boy. Me and my girl walked around and literally tried to. Yes, Julia, it does make you want to dance down the street. It's so wonderful. I wish I had a better term for it. I wish that I had this eloquent way to describe Key West, but the weather is amazing. The food is top notch, and I'm sure that there's some food critics that be like, well, actually, I'm talking about for us regular folks. The food was outstanding, and Sarah said something that it was really poignant. I thought about it every time we went to eat. She was like, because it's kind of like there's not the city can't expand. It's swamp on either side. There's only so much land that you can, so there's a fixed amount of places for restaurants, and there's so many good restaurants that if you're not good, you'll just get you'll just get you can't compete. So every place you go has really good coffee, really good key lime pie. Colleagues, do you understand how much key lime pie we that the first place we went to was a key lime pie place. The first place when we still had our bags with us. You don't want to do this with us. We do this. Not only did we get key lime pie, we also got key lime pie jelly beans. All right. It was such a wonderful time down there. Like we just had a really great time. And then because I'm on a never ending quest to be in wildly different climates, now I am here in Cleveland. Oh, really quickly, funny story. When we went to Key West, there's definitely people obviously that live there year round. And so we went to this place called Sarah Beth's for breakfast. Sarah does all the scouting and logistics. So Sarah goes, I found this place called Sarah Beth's. So we go there, and there's like not really anybody like hostessing, so you don't know if they're open, and but there are people waiting. And there's this one kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say older white dude. He's probably not too far away from how old I am. He's probably, I don't know, early 60s. and he was there with his kid and his wife, and he just starts talking. He goes, "Food here is great. We came here last year on Christmas morning. Our waiter was hammered." And we were just like, "It's okay." And he was just our waiter was telling us he was just chugging shots in the back to just keep the party going. And I was like, "You weren't mad that your waiter was drunk?" And he was like, "No, our waiter, um, I guess, told them that they got called in the morning of you know new of Christmas morning, and like when you're young and you're not opening gifts, like that's a big party night, I guess, down there. So when you call employees the night after, if you call an employee to come in January 1st, anything over the holidays where they're not scheduled, I feel like they cannot be fired for their behavior. That's on you. You should know, and you should hope that your employees are getting it in, so they'll be nice and refreshed for the year. So, and that same dinner, that same meal at Starbest, we had a great time. It was briefly interrupted because there was a table sitting behind us. It was like a 10 top. It seemed like a father, mother, and then kids in college with their significant other. So it was like dad with daughter's boyfriend kind of thing. And all of a sudden, we just hear somebody say, "Excuse me, everybody. My dad is about to chug his drink. Can you start cheering to?" So everybody on Christmas morning just starts cheering for this 62-year-old, kind of well put together white dude to chug his drink. He promptly stood up. He extended his middle finger to everybody in the showroom. And like a father that follows through on a promise to his son, drunkenly on Christmas Day, he chugged his drink in front of everybody. So it was just a good time. The vibes down there were great. And I wanted to pop on because I already kind of see people talking in the chat. We're all getting these year-end wrap-ups from YouTube and just all the things that we watch. And it's kind of good to look at those things to just see how quickly a year has passed and also how much happened within the last year. And so I have like a little bit of a guide here from Michael Dean, but whatever that what stands out most to you guys about the year that was, about 2025. I'm assuming Epstein will be big on that. It's just weird because it's kind of ongoing, and there was never really a date that we can say this. Yes, they dropped, but kind of, sort of, not really. So what's up, Jag? Good to see you down there, representing Arizona. I'm sure it is much warmer than it is here in Cleveland. There is a driving snowstorm right now, which we are working through. I am going to go downtown and do a show tonight. So if you are in Cleveland, come out and see me. It's on my Instagram page, and that's a comics way of saying I don't know the exact address or the name of the place I'm performing, but that doesn't matter. What does matter is that I am here with y'all. Some people, Shelly says she's numbed out with our government being pulled apart. I think that Shelly may be my overarching. I don't know if it would count as an exact, like there's an exact title for it, but us just kind of realizing that there are no rules. It just seems like there's no rules. I mean, you just take something that's even aesthetic, like the White House. We all thought that the White House was like, you couldn't really make adjustments to that. Imagine if my friend Mark came back to his house and I was like, "Hey, I took off the east wing of your house because I just really think that me and my girl need a pickleball court. And so I just destroyed that. The east wing of the White House is no longer there. We're being told that a ballroom is being built. I live in Denver, and there are places in the city where, I would drive past regularly, go to pick Sarah up or drop her off. And in the course of 6 months, they take kind of an abandoned city corner, and there is a 21 floor apartment built there in 6 months, built there, operating, coffee shop underneath. leasing office, people going in and out, people walking their dogs. That's a random private project here in Denver. What's going on with the White House? It still looks like shit. It looks terrible. It's not there. And we don't I don't want to go to that dog don't hunt, but should we just do one? Let's do a little quick dog don't hunt because I have a little quick thought about what might be going on there. All right, that dog don't hunt, y'all. And my issue with what's going on with this ballroom is not only the time it's taking to build it, but there have been reports, some people have questioned if the ballroom is not maybe supporting something, maybe a cover or a lid to something underneath it, something that may store a lot of our data. We remember, as we're going over things that we remember from this year, remember Doge and how random that was? Remember how they were just like, this dude from South Africa he is full access to everybody's most personal, private information. He came over here with some 19-year-olds. They did nothing. They were rude. They fired a bunch of people. They said that they were looking for government uh, corruption, overspending. None of that was ever brought to light. And then it just went away. Well, my question is, you know, what did they do with all that information? They had access to that for months. Doesn't it seem important that, you know, they were willing to openly and brazenly break the law to get access to our personal information? And they were like, oh, nothing to see here. And this ketamine addict just kind of goes away. When your data or sensitive data is stored anywhere close to the White House, aka underneath a ballroom, that automatically makes it classified and makes it so that it can't be leaked, especially if that information is underground. There is just, it just seems like the building of a ballroom is the least of what is happening there. And when you think about how our data was kind of used when people were being um, approached and accosted by law enforcement, by FBI um, members for making Charlie Kirk memes. Like the government showed up at people's houses, the government, over something he posted on YouTube. It just seems like if you're going to try and have a a state of fear, I'm not saying a police state, I think that might be a little overstepping it, but just a state of fear where people know that they can be tracked and what they're saying online and what they're texting with their friends is being documented and recorded and saved and housed somewhere. It sounds like that might be a great place to put some of that information. That's all I'm saying. Yes. And don't forget, as MLO brings up Big Balls was also implicated in the reason that troops were told that they were needed to be in DC. He was the carjacking victim, the person that's under 21 years old, but yet he was out at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning. He was attacked, and this carjacking then led Trump, because most presidents address carjackings in a singular one-to-one situation. Can you imagine if the president took time to address every carjacking or every major crime? Yeah, a truck was taken off from a Utah truck stop. We need to get some troops in there. But he paid very close attention to this carjacking, and because of that, that was the reason that he said that we needed troops on the ground in DC, which they are as we do this podcast. I'm just saying, I think that was super interesting and scary. So just keep an eye on, you know, what's going on with that ballroom, and just say what's taking so long. All right, let's get into. We got a bunch of major stories, so let's just do this. All right. I'm looking at the list, and everything is like such a big thing. Let's just start with ice. Um, Never in my wildest dreams did I think that we would ever see masked men regularly on the streets of America, and not even overwhelmingly, but in blue cities and blue states, dragging off American citizens. The image of that, I think, is going to be burned in all of our heads. There's so many videos of ICE acting, quite frankly, illegally towards citizens, that I think that we all have our own personal one. Mine was one that we saw early on where they attacked. It was the one that it was the kind of the first big one that leaked, that just showed that ICE was full of what we always assumed was dullards. Is those two ICE agents, they try to detain a Hispanic man in the middle of the street in the middle of the day, and they couldn't get him down. At one point, like once they have him down, one of the cops pulls his gun out after dropping it, and he had dropped the cartridge out of the bottom of it, and then points that weapon towards somebody that was filming him while his glasses were dangling off the edge of his. And I just remember looking at that like I as somebody that tries to write about this world and find humor in this world, write screenplays about this world, the parameters for which I've always written have been, I try and base them in reality. So characters or even things that would happen tangential to whatever the character is going through in that exact scene. I always wanted to be as real as possible. And at no point in anything that I was writing would I ever think. And then the president deputized everybody that wanted 10 grand and wanted to physically put their hands on brown people to just go do that. I mean, we'd heard things like that were going on with border patrol because it's hard to get people to do those jobs. But the idea that now people in a mask can walk up and take your kid and not have to tell you why, not have to tell you where they're going, just have to tell you, and do it in a car that does not have a license plate on it. It is I think the further we get away from it, it seems crazy now, but it's going to I do think that when we find out, when we get the true numbers of how many people were kidnapped, if you were seeking to do harm to children or to women, the government, you find out the government has a program. Well, not only can you do that with impunity, it doesn't seem like there's much record keeping, and they'll pay you. And anything that goes down, you kick an old man in the face, the president's got your back, just like he had the January 6ers back. I mean, we are living in wild, that this would not happen on that show Deadwood, where just a bad guy takes over and empties the jails of his supporters, who are seen committing crimes on camera. And a lot of those people that were let out of jail have gone on to commit more crimes. It has been untouched by the mainstream media, including CNN. That might be something that we want to talk about, colleagues, is maybe the loss of trust as it pertains to former news sources. I think ground zero for loss of trust in terms of personally for news sources that I used to constantly look at, and might sound silly, was when Twitter went away. Speaking of Doge and Mr. Two, what salutes, um, Mr. Elon Musk. I used to use Twitter. I used it a lot. Twitter was really good for, you could look up things in your community. They'd be like, hey, there's a right to life protest down on Capitol Hill today. So avoid, Broadway between 8th and 9th, from 12 to 2 o'clock. I used to look at Twitter and laugh. I used to look at Twitter and there'd be posts from reporters that you could read up on. Twitter hasn't been viable as a realistic news source in a while. Um, and now we look at as we get to the end of this year, with CBS seemingly, allegedly pulling a story about CCOT, the detention facility, the torture facility in El Salvador that we have been sending um, alleged uh, immigrant criminals. We have to say alleged because there was no trial for most of these people. Many have been proven to be American citizens. Others were on the pathway to being American citizens, meaning that they were um, in the what's the program? It's December. I'm sorry. Uh, Asylum. When they're trying when they were seeking asylum, you're seeking asylum because you're running from a country in which um, your life is in danger. I remember one time I was talking to Jeff on the panel, and it's weird. It sounds kind of like a douchebag thing to say, but it was something that I said that I've thought about a lot since I said it. And we were dealing with we were talking about immigration as you do, and Jeff had, I think, a very normal point, which is they should go about the process of immigration the correct way. And I don't think anybody is totally against that. But when you're fleeing for your life, a lot of the people that were arriving here in asylum had babies with them. Nobody had shoes on. And I said to Jeff, I was like, your family lives about 30 minutes here from the studio. What if we got off the air and your wife had your two boys with you and they didn't have any shoes on? That means that they had to leave the house right that second. What would have to happen for your wife and your boys to leave the house with no shoes on and travel just 30, let's say 20 miles from Jeff's house to the studio? Now put another 1,000 on that 20 and think about what you would have to be running from for it to make sense for you to leave the place that you live, the place where you had all the memories, the place where your friends and family and support system were, where you needed to leave that moment. And I think that should help give us some empathy towards the situation that a lot of these people are fleeing from. Yeah, and now here we are. Oh, thank you, Julia. Shout out to Biggie Smalls. Rest in peace. We also got some clarity on his passing, and we'll get to that with the Diddy doc. But as a country of immigrants, to have this be the main issue that has galvanized so many voters to vote, seemingly at this point against their own interests, you know, all you heard was immigration, immigration, the immigration system's broken. Trump said he'll fix it. And I think he quickly realized that that takes too long. People going through trials. And what he also probably realized is a lot of people are trying to do this the right way. A lot of people are not criminals. A lot of people are just like, hey, I've been working at this high school for 20 years and I want to become a citizen of this country that I've been paying taxes in for 20, 30 years. Like, I would love to be a part of this country that I've put in and been a part of. And those kind of people are not people that you can actively have active ongoing cases against. It's expensive and it's not going to go anywhere. But what you can do is just grab somebody brown and then throw them in a car and drive them to a detention facility. And interesting, last thing I'll say about the detention facilities is it's weird for a country that was like, get the immigrants out of here. A lot of them are being detained. Why aren't they just being put in buses and driven back across the border? It seems like a lot of these detention facilities are privately owned and they need to be stocked with bodies in order for them to make money. You think about what happened with the privatization of our prison system, and all of a sudden, here comes the war on drugs, and now somebody that had a couple rocks of crack cocaine in 1983 is still sitting in jail 15, 20 years later. Why? It's because this is about business. I don't. When would Trump ever run into an immigrant unless he went, especially somebody undocumented, unless he went into a place where most people that do business know where those people are located. And remember, he tried that as well. Remember the initial kind of when he tried to just like do these mass sweeps. So he was going into the strawberry fields up in Northern California, going into hotels, going into factories that are slaughterhouses and things like that. And he quickly realized that all yes, please hit that like button. He quickly realized that the major donors for his campaign, the rich white dudes that would come in and pay $30,000 a plate to have dinner with him, didn't really like that their facilities that employ almost exclusively undocumented workers were being raided by the same administration that they helped prop up. So I'm really interested to see where this is going to go because it really did put them on their back foot. They were like, well, we'll just go grab some brown people. They couldn't do that because those brown people were trying to figure out how to do this the right way. And then they said, well, we'll just go where the undocumented workers definitely are. And then they tried that, but then they realized that, hey, our major donors don't really like that. So they kind of have to have these spectacles, these large public spectacles, because quite frankly, the idea of undocumented workers that are also hardened criminals is a very, very like small Venn diagram. These are the kinds of things you want to talk about before you put a program into action in the public. All right, let's move on. Let's do this. All right, we also got to talk about some trials, y'all, because there have been a bunch. I know people were talking about Karen Reed's trial. We also had the Brian Koberger trial. Don't forget, that's the monster that killed. I believe it was four in total. It may be three. One of you guys let me know. Three or four young folks up there in Idaho that were just in college. He was a very strange, dark, brooding young man. Um, and he was studying criminology, I believe, at the graduate level. He was writing letters to serial killers, but it all kind of made sense because of his major that he was studying. But a lot of people, I've seen interviews with people that were in class with him. Some of the people didn't even want their last name used because they were saying he was very creepy and vindictive. Then they also said that he had an extreme aversion to working. He killed four. Thank you, Shelley. Um, he killed four he killed four people, but a lot of the people that he worked with that were women said that he had an aversion to any kind of woman in a position of authority. And it seemed like he was also struggling to date. So you get the whole incel conversation mixed in there as well. And you guys, this is what, I'm looking at Beatrice and see Mitchell. Everybody saying, sadly, four students. You're absolutely right. I just always think that number is wrong too, because we say the number of people killed, but if you think about the spider web effect of what that did to all their family and all their friends and all the people that would never be the same, if something happened to one of my children, it would say, you know, one person was lost in this event, but it just like the ripple effects throughout communities and throughout families goes on for generations, especially when it's so thoughtless and when it is so seemingly random. As far as I could tell, there was very little to any connection with them. And I think that's harder for us in our human minds to wrap our heads around. I mean, when we hear that there has been, a shooting at a supposed drug location or mafia hangout, there is at least some idea that when you are involved in certain businesses that may be illegal, what you need to do is, sometimes you guys gotta handle that yourselves. You can't go to court. And for as unpleasant as it is, the only way that you can acquire territory, acquire power, all of the above is by doing handling it in other ways. And at least there is the idea that the people that were involved in that had some agency in their participation and knew what they were going into with their eyes open. What's worse is when there are four young people that were asleep and they're having the time of their lives. They're falling in love. They're getting ready to start their lives together. Their parents are over the moon. And also, quite frankly, as a parent, just getting ready to run through the yellow tape at the finish line and be like, I raised these damn kids. Now me and my wife got our house back to ourselves, as the great Bernie Mac used to say. Our kids are out of the house. We're walking around naked. Life is good. You just get to do whatever you want. You're about to retire, all that good stuff, and now those lives are extinguished. And I can't imagine what that would feel like. I can't imagine how you move on. Um, it's weird. I was talking this weekend with the club owner's girlfriend, and she was just asking me what was it like to host a talk show and talk to all these celebrities and all these different people, and which interview stuck with me the most. And it was the parents that had lost children. Um, quite frankly, um, those really messed me up. Um, and I think I was affected on two different levels. One was just a very visceral level where I would just be asking my question to this parent, and no matter what was coming out of my mouth, I'm like, how are you talking to me right now? Like the strength that it takes to carry on. I've said it before. The woman who she was we I was excited to do the story because I thought it was like a really inspirational story, and it was we didn't get her backstory, but there was a black woman that was going down to Skid Row and washing and styling and doing the makeup of people that were unhoused and just giving them a sense of dignity and a sense of like aesthetic, you know dignity and like seeing yourself in a way that you probably haven't seen yourself in a long time. And I just thought it was such a beautiful thing. And I don't know if it was me that asked it, but somebody on the panel was like, oh, what led you to this work? And usually it's working with the church, but she just like casually was like, she had a young son who was 3 or 4, and um, her grandmother was watching her son while she was at work, and that little kid got into the grandmother's medicine cabinet, took a bunch of medicine. He didn't know what it was, and by the time they got to the hospital, the doctor was like, "There's nothing we can do. He's just gonna go to sleep." And so she just calmly described her last few moments and just her son saying, "Mommy, I'm sleepy," and that's as far as I can go even right now. Um, and I don't. I would argue that right at that moment, I have never been the same person. I was staring at this woman in awe at how, and she said something that I really have tried to live my life by. She said, because I probably did ask her some version of like, "How are you still standing upright?" And she was like, "The energy of despair is energy, and it needs to go somewhere. And I can let it consume me, or I can put out goodness into the world." And that's what led her to working with people, on Skid Row. And I'll never forget that. And there's so many people that came on the show that were not famous, and they had so much more of a profound impact on me because they they were faced with a part of life that there's no instruction manual for. And really, however you choose to handle it, no one would begrudge you for it. And the fact that people were able to move forward with grace and with love is something that I'll forever take with me. And it's like really one of the things that I'm most grateful for the show for was just like bringing these incredible people into my life, if only for a 5-minute segment. All right. So yes, so we had that trial, and now we get to talk about the trial that I'm sure everybody knows about. We need to change that to what infamous people are doing, because that's what Sean Puffy Combs is now and will forever be, is infamous. Not only did we have, I mean, really, they always say like you know, the Time Person of the Year. I believe one year it was Adolf, you know who, and everybody's like, well, how could you have this person? And they basically, the magazine was like, this isn't people we like. These are people that were influential. And say what you want about Mr. Combs, he has been omnipresent in our culture for the better part of a year and a half, 2 years, but especially this year. I mean, just going back to, remember the raid that they had on this house. We saw the Cassie video leaked of him assaulting her on the hallway camera security monitor. We then saw the trial begin, the picking of jurors. Um, you know, the FBI introducing the word freak offs into our brains that will never go anywhere. Um, uh, Stock in Johnson & Johnson baby oil going up or down. I'm assuming down after it was associated with him. And then at the end of this year, as if we thought we were all puffied out, 50 Cent was like, no, I want you to take a look at this. And we've had some documentaries that have been groundbreaking. We've had some documentaries that have changed the narrative and the cultural shift in terms of how we always perceived events as like, this is what happened, and then maybe after a documentary or two we're like, oh, maybe it wasn't like that. But the Puffy documentary uncovered and, in my opinion, solved the two biggest murders in hip hop history, which was Tupac and Notorious B.I.G. One is who I'm wearing on my jacket, ironically. Speaking about a cultural hangover, I mean, that happened in the 90s, and he's 30 years later, he's still very present in our society. And not only did the Diddy documentary uncover his possible alleged connection in those two murders, but it also showed the depths of the record industry. I think it probably explained to a lot of us when we had artists that we really liked it. Like, oh, do you remember that artist? Yeah, I really liked her. What happened? She never had a second album. And we always like, why? Why didn't they? Because of producers like Puffy. Because these guys encircle young, naive talent, and they take advantage of them financially, as we learned with the music advances, and they were showing how that works, with not owning your work, so that you're free to get all the limos you want, all the champagne you want, but when you want to get paid, they're like, I don't know about that. So it's kind of explained a lot to me about the music industry, and also about how hierarchy protects power, especially when there's really no one to check that power. Puffy was at a point where he was so powerful in one industry that when he said the kind of thing like, you'll never work again in this town, that was not a threat. That was an absolute fact. And we saw young artist after young artist fall victim to his wrath. And we saw young artists feel compelled to carry out his bidding because they saw what would happen if they didn't. Puffy has altered our experience on this planet as it pertains to artists that we were exposed to, artists that we saw a glimpse of, but never really got the full uh, catalog of what they were capable of. And it was all because of this one man. And I'm sure if you look at television, if you look obviously at music or anything like that, it's really kind of what happens with a lot of these industries is one person gets on top and they pull up the ladder so that nobody else can compete with them, and they stamp out their competition. It's kind of what Amazon has done. Um, if you ever want to read into their practices about why they are so successful, it's a we're in a very interesting time where I'm curious to see, as we look, as we're kind of on the precipice of this hostile takeover of Paramount, well, and Netflix possibly taking out over basically everything that is media. We touched on it earlier when we were talking about the death of Twitter. Um, so Elon Musk kind of, whether he knew it or not, I think showed the playbook for how to disarm dissonant voices, and that's just to buy them. We never thought about that. You can just buy them. Twitter was known for these epic roast sessions on Elon Musk, and he would get on there and defend himself. He was like, "What if I just buy this whole platform and just like, you know, shut you guys up forever?" And that's exactly what he did. And now, less than 4 years from that, we have a situation where it looks like, if this merger goes through, Larry Ellison um, would not only be, speaking of places that house dissonant voices, TikTok. Larry Ellison was, after they were forced to sell to an American, they sell to Larry Ellison. So now TikTok and Instagram are no longer usable or viable for people that have something alternate to say. Not only does he control TikTok, but he would own, um, or have a major share of, obviously, CBS, which I saw you guys talking about in the comments, which is, it doesn't show you how quickly these institutions that spend decades and decades, day after day, um, trying to have credibility with the American people, having on credible anchors, handling very tough, tense situations with grace and even-handedness. And now CBS is just openly in the pocket of the executive branch of the government. And we now have what seems to be allegedly a pretty clear case of the idea that the government did not want a story about CCOT to run on CBS, and that story did not run on CBS. It ran on CBS Canada. The CBS here in the States had to run promos and trailers for this. This was a major story. This is a story that they worked 6 months on, and it just got pulled. And so, if we know about that, what else don't we know about? And instead, CBS, which is a major, one of the big three, CBS, ABC, and NBC, CBS decided a few weeks ago to have a town hall with Erica Kirk. You guys all know the town hall that nobody asked for. Um, and Erica Kirk is her own ball of strangeness. But, we see the gears of politics and media moving in symbiosis. And it was supposed to be the opposite of that. Journalism was there to question. Journalism, was, when you think journalism, you think about Watergate. You think about stories that these major companies did not want to come out, and they came out anyway because somebody was in. Brandon says South Park has more integrity than 60 Minutes. It absolutely does. That's not even up for debate. And the fact that that's even something that can be said not in jest lets you know that we all know that CBS, our old friend, is gone. And I wonder who else is next. I wonder how many mergers will we have to see, because if this merger goes through, that means that Larry Ellison, one guy, would have Twitter, um, HBO, CNN, Comedy Central, Paramount, and Netflix. That's one dude, one guy. And, you take Facebook and Instagram, that's uh now we're talking about two guys. That's Zuckerberg and Ellison. You throw X in there or Twitter, that's three dudes. And we now have three men. And then if you want to put Rupert Murdoch in there with Fox, that's four conservative white men that have not only total control of the television airwaves, total control of the internet as well, because we can definitely see that they can decide what gets elevated and what gets pushed down on their platforms. And we now have maybe four or five guys that have their hands, on the steering wheel of what you see and what I see as a consumer. And it's really disturbing. And I do wonder, um, if I saw somebody said maybe blue sky, and maybe there will be places that step up and have different kinds of content, because what I think a lot of these outlets don't realize is that there's a lot of different people that consume their news differently. And when you have just one or two guys, really, quite frankly, a handful of people that control all of television and all of the internet, what it's going to do is cause one or two things. There will be state television, which I think CBS is kind of priming itself to be. It's CBS is going to be Fox News, wrapped in kind of like, no, we're still the CBS, and we're just doing both sides. But I do wonder who's going to have enough money and financial firepower and following to be the Pepsi to the Coke that is now conservative news, because conservative is pushed down our throat at every turn. There's no reason that anybody should ever say the word Kid Rock again, but yet he's slated to be the first performer in Trump's new ballroom. Like, all these people that we don't want to control things have it at this point. And Shelly, you said you hear sadness in my voice. It's not sadness. It's kind of like, just kind of, I guess, as I'm talking, maybe even it's hitting me like what the playing field looks like, and as we start 2026. But that also doesn't mean that that's what it's going to look like at the end of 2026, because what they say in um, uh, Jurassic Park, life finds a way. Well, so do cool other voices. They tried to throw Reaganomics on America's inner cities and bury them. And instead, we got hip hop. It was the financial bridge that allowed a lot of people to step out of that poverty and start businesses of their own. And there are always unintended consequences. So once you think that you own everything and you have everything, there's definitely something that you've overlooked, and smart person will jump on that, and we will find our way out of this woods, and hopefully we'll find some something different, something new. Because I think that it's something, as a 48-year-old man, I have to tell myself all the time, we're not going back. And so reminiscing on how things used to be, and man, that was really great. That's over, Jack. But I think there should be some excitement and finding out what's next. So, I do appreciate your thoughts, and like, I just do want to say before we go any further, I appreciate y'all. Um, I don't know where Tori and I would be without the colleagues, you guys, and just hearing Sarah, my girl, talk about you guys, and like, she loves to see like the connections that you guys have with each other and with us. And it needs to be said that um we really appreciate y'all and we love y'all. And we're gonna get through this, because don't forget, we're the fun ones, okay? And I don't know if y'all have read history or watched any movies. The fun people usually win in the end. We just have to catch up because while we're having fun, the mean people plan some really awful stuff, and sometimes they're really good about it. So we gotta have some fun. And speaking of fun, can we like change the banner on the back of this, Al? It's like such a depressing black banner. Let's do. Do you want to do a little chop? How about this? Is that better, or is that too Christmassy now? All right, or we could just do this. Like, hey, Al just got back from. He's chilling now. What about that? I don't like that. That's scary. Okay. Um, we will do Forest Joy, and we're gonna go from there. All right. So let's get to another story. Are we done? Is that all the trials? Yeah, we talked about Diddy. We talked about. Oh, okay. Let's briefly talk about all the things that were trending this year. One was Labubu dolls. What the hell? Labubu dolls. I never understood or got Labubu. I feel like that was above my pay grade, maybe thankfully. But I don't know if people still collect them. They probably don't. I hope they don't because it's disturbing. But we all got to have something that we chased for a while. It was the Stanley mugs. That was actually the beginning of this year. Remember, like around January 2025, everybody was getting those Stanley mugs and those mugs that you couldn't, like anything that's kind of hard to find. Those get popular for a second, and then people grab them and they're like, "Great, now I have 7 thermoses. I've been had." So yeah, I don't know what's going on with Labubus, but I do know that we had some other. We had the 6-7. I think are we out of the 6-7 forest? Are we out of the 6-7 forest? It seems like we are. It ran. It was such a virulent strain of social experimentation that I think it burned itself out quicker because everybody was saying it. Even football players are doing the 6-7, bro. And I think it was the younger generations kind of trolling us because it didn't mean anything, and they knew that we hated it. But after a while, once we started saying it, they were like, it's like when your mom uses a slang word, you're like, well, can't say that anymore. I think we did that with 6-7. I think that we killed it. Another story that we talked about, and it's weird because we talked briefly about it last week, was the Kiss Cam Coldplay concert fallout. Famously, there was a woman with and a woman that worked at HR at a company called Astronomer. Is that right? Astronomer AI or something, some tech company, and she was caught on a kiss cam with somebody that was not her husband. It went viral in a way. It's weird because I've thought about this a lot because I've had the Tory and I chicken Popeye's chicken went viral, and a couple other things I did went pretty viral. Um, and I've always said, like, what if you got the same viral but for something bad? Like I'm sure, I mean, statistically, it will happen to me. I talk into this thing for a living, and I'm speaking with a lot of opinions, and I speak passionately about things. I'm going to be dead wrong about some things. I'm going to offend some people. That's just par for the course. And I think that the woman on the kiss play cam was a perfect example of how the person on the video is the last person that anybody's actually thinking about or talking about. When the fallout happened, there were comments underneath calling her every name but a child of God. Um, you know, then we find out that she loses her job. The public really went after her, and we found out later that her and her husband were separated, and we found out later after that that homeboy was at the same concert with his new chick. And I'm like, it made me think of that scene in The Wedding Singer when his wife comes up and she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry I left you at the altar. I fell out of love with you." And he was like, "That was great information I could have used yesterday." And I just thought that with this poor woman who I read an article that thank you. See, Mitchell, the fallout was the yes, astronomer. The fallout was the spouses and the children. Can you imagine? Think about how y'all feel about your mama right now. Think about how I feel about Jackie. If everybody on the internet was calling them any kind of name, it would kill me. But just the late night hosts and podcasts making an hour breakdown about why your mom is the problem with women in the workplace or whatever, and it kind of gets back to the issue of this woman had no one cared about her at all. She was just the toehold that people were using to push whatever agenda that they had. This is why you can't trust women. This is why, if you're making jokes, that face you make when your side piece finds your, all these things, but you forget that those are people. And this woman said that she's uh, functionally unemployable now, and I totally agree. Who could bring that into their organization? I'm sure she's a fantastic HR person. She's clearly doing very well for herself at this company, and because of this seemingly strange moment that maybe on paper there was some cheating because some paperwork hadn't gone through, but both her and her husband had moved on. But that didn't matter because YouTube numbers need to be met, people need to be villainized, and points need to be made. And sometimes that's um, going to be made on with you as the person that is on the chopping block. I feel, yeah, W Booker, he was on there. He was there with a date too, and I was wondering why didn't he say that like the night of? And Shelly, people had no business throwing stones. Dang, what? Yes, like every time these things come out, everybody's like, "Can you believe this woman possibly cheated?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can." I think most people that maybe not have cheated, but maybe have been involved in an emotional affair, and cheated a little bit, maybe once in college. People are people, and it's hard to go through your entire life like one of the knights of the round table, having never learned anything. I've cheated before, and quite frankly, it's really more of when you are actually cheating, it's more of a reflection of how you feel about yourself than the actual partner that you're with. And once you unpack what led you to that, once you unpack um, how your behavior affected somebody that you once proclaimed to love, there's a lot of soul searching to be done, and that needs to be done usually in private. But soul searching doesn't take place on the internet. In the comments, everybody is like, I can't believe this woman. Let's go back 5 years in anybody's history, 10 years, 15. You can't believe who's this dude in this picture. That's what I thought. So, we're all people and we've all done things that we're not proud of in our past. And I think that's kind of like what makes what we have here special is we speak on it. No one here proclaims to be a saint. And Emlo, we didn't. Death threats are just death threats need to be their own show. Emlo saying that didn't she get a lot of death threats? It's Emlo. It's really affected like how I even watch sports. Like there'll be like a college game and some kid will miss a kick to win the game, and he already feels like shit. And as soon as that ball lands, my first thought is like, how many death threats is this kid gonna get tonight? Can you imagine being a 19-year-old kid, but you're playing football in the SEC, somewhere where people are crazy about football, like the LSU or Alabama, and you miss a kick? Quite frankly, I would think there would be some programs that like your family would need to be moved for a few days until things calm down. And that would not be overdoing it. Death threats are so crazy because they're they're seen as this benign thing, but Nancy Pelosi and her husband were threatened with their lives over and over again. And everybody said, "Shut up, you liberals, no one cares." Until a guy showed up at their house with a hammer. There was a judge in South Carolina whose house, it never made as much news as I thought it should have. House strangely exploded um, it's about 6 months ago. The news barely covered it. There are political extremists, and there are extremists all around us, whether some of them are extreme about K-pop and some of them are extreme about politics. But it doesn't really matter now, does it? Because when that person is there at your door, I told you I famously had a friend that had um, a an online harasser, and this person sent this person that's a friend of mine a picture of their mother's house, and it was clearly that this person was standing in front of it. Can you imagine how terrifying that is? This person is not a political figure. So until I think we start making examples of people that get caught making death threats, and I'm not talking about just them losing their jobs. I'm talking about prison time. That is that is stalking and that is harassment in the worst way. And I just think when you hit people with prison time or in their wallet and stuff starts to stop. There's a reason that people don't threaten the president online or in public. You don't yell certain things in public spaces, even though there is a freedom of speech. It's because some things are punished. Some speech is punished. And I believe that death threats should fall under that because we've seen it. See, Mitchell, we do not have strong stalking laws. Are you trying to keep me on here forever? Because I have always been blown away by how many of my close, buttoned up, normal as could be female friends and men, but obviously not as much, have had legit stalkers. Legit, like could be on Netflix kind of thing. I have friends of mine that don't put their last name on sign up sheets, even for fun stuff. I have friends of mine that do not have social media because they have had a stalker for the last 8 years. And every time they try, that person pops up immediately. Stalkers are relentless and they're terrifying because even like, you know, see, Mitchell was like, we don't have strong stalking laws. We don't have strong stalking laws for like famous people, like legit people that have a security team. Taylor Swift has dealt with it. So many people have dealt with insane stalkers, and they're like, "Yeah, he's got 30 days." I'm like, 30 days? He broke in this person's mansion when they were on tour and like did weird stuff in there. Like that's all you get? Like it's not that you get that after your second DUI. Like I think like you really need to let people know like these are any things that have like regularly led to somebody's demise needs to be treated like we caught this ahead of time. Not like, well, as soon as they actually do something, we'll be there to arrest them. There's I we do things to stop things preemptively, and I think stalking would be one of the ways that we let people know that we're not messing around. Because that's I don't know. Somebody just left a really gross comment. Um, yeah, I believe it. And Julia said when she worked in radio, you know what it is also is just like it shows you just the medium, whether it's your voice, Julia, or a picture they saw, there's something about when a crazy person locks in on you, there's a fear because the police really genuinely can't do anything until they do something. And by then it's too late for you. So I totally get it. And Julia, I'm glad. I hope that's no longer a situation that you're dealing with. All right, let's start to bring this in for a landing. It's an hour 5 in. Clearly, I didn't get to half the stuff I wanted to talk to y'all about. But I wanted to pop on to let y'all know I love y'all so much. Like, not in that, like, I love my fans. Like, I really do F with y'all. I love y'all so much. Like, you guys have supported Tory and myself and MD since day one, and we ain't going nowhere. So just remember that. That sounded like a threat, just like I always say with love songs. It's all the context because like I'll follow you to the end of the world could be very romantic or getting back to the stalker laws. So when I say it, I mean that like I love y'all truly in every sense of the word, and I appreciate you guys' support. We will be back here tomorrow, um, same time, same place. If you're in Toledo or in the Detroit area or anything like that, come see me at the Funny Bone New Year's Eve. We're gonna bring in the new year the right way. And if you're in Cleveland tonight and you have a Humvee that can battle these elements, come out and see the show, won't ya? All right. I love y'all. And until tomorrow, I'll see y'all then.